So I'm sure a couple more people might show up as we get going. That's totally fine. And what we're going to kick off, though, is with an introduction round, because some of you might not know each other. So a real brief kind of 90 seconds tops of what you're doing and what you're kind of bringing. So pitch deck style. So I will pass it to Sydney. Actually, I won't do that. I'll pass it to whoever wants to go first. And then if you want to go next, just put your hand up in the chat.
Thanks.
I'm going to call on someone though. Lucien, I know you love being called on. I'll call you first.
I knew you were going to do that actually in advance.
Well, and you're the most comfortable here, so.
Sure. Hey, Franz, welcome. So we're just doing intros, 90-second intros. So Lucien Tarnowski, I've basically had my whole life in the community space. Got involved as a child from my dad, who is a kind of community pioneer, helped create the world's largest community around disability and leprosy in India, which is my second home. And I spent 10 years running a software company, creating learning communities and talent communities for all sorts of multi-stakeholder initiatives, and was kind of under the hood of designing something like 1,000 of them. And then took that into what I focus on today, which is gamifying the activation of communities through actually a really interesting mechanism of stepping into the future in 2030, where we bring community stakeholders together and coalition stakeholders together to envision the transformation that they're working towards from the perspective of it already being done, and then reverse engineering that. So it's all about activating different stakeholder roles, incentivizing contributions from stakeholders, and it's kind of a layer on top of essentially a kind of regenerative civics, accelerator in some sense. So I've been here from the beginning. We're using Haifa as a kind of prototyping environment for the initial token inside United Planet, and the game is called the Up Game, and it's essentially a multi-team game that's starting in person and virtually through video conferencing and that kind of thing, but will move into a whole immersive reality in the
and how many in-person events have you run now?
I mean, so I did, in between my transition from Brave New to United Planet, I started a foundation called Savannah Foundation. And we created this prototype of a concept called a planetary embassy. And so there we hosted well over 100 events in person. Then COVID happened. And so since COVID, we've probably done, I don't know, at least 50 gatherings, I would say, like 50 United Planet engagements across various shapes and sizes. And so we've been really kind of blueprinting how do we have a methodology to activate collective intelligence through communities and coalitions.
Yeah, and you've been dancing around to all the energy nodes on the earth, setting up little groups of change. So I think
exactly. Yeah, I love connecting members of the team, and seeing it as an emerging sport in some sense. Seeing what we're doing as like we need athletes of systems change, athletes of the Regenaissance, and that's part of what the Up Game is exploring.
So that's kind of the entry point into Regen Civics. Is Lucien's been connecting incredible people and communities and you're connected with thousands of people at this point with all the events you put on that I think are perfect, who all are wanting to be part of the regenerative renaissance. They see this new world. So these are the people I think will be perfect for showing up to the different Regen Civics projects. So that kind of gives you an idea of what role Lucien's playing here. Thanks, Lucien. You're awesome. Maybe Franz, I'll put you. No, Will, you put your hand up. Awesome. So we're going to go over to.
I'll put my hand up to praise Lucien and be like, oh.
Okay. Okay. That's praising hands. So Franz, maybe you can do the same thing. Just a real quick intro. Where do you fit in?
Yeah, a quick intro. I think I met most of us here, except for maybe for Sydney. But yeah, my story I've been weaving with Rieki and Seeds. Prior to that, we've been working on an organization based out of Liechtenstein called Integrity.Earth, where we've been kind of mapping the whole ecosystem for transformation and bringing all those nodes together. Yeah, right now I'm also a little bit excited. I have to share. I just got off a call with One Earth Foundation, so the whole Leonardo DiCaprio and their spiel, and they're very excited with the work we're doing. And just to give you a context, what I've been sharing with them also around what we're doing here is really the seeding of decentralized autonomous bioregions. And also this last month, I've been traveling across the world and really like initiating that seed of identifying the regenerative leaders in different bioregions and plugging them into this multidisciplinary task force to identify the needs of the community and define the roles and kind of already start this ecosystem of integrative accounting. One key piece that I'm doing right now in this ecosystem of the regenerative renaissance is what I call MUM, the movement of movements. So essentially focusing on land-based projects where we have a DAO and staking protocol where any landholder can stake land and earn tokens that represent the regenerative futures of that land. And we've been together with a lot of different initiatives that are working around that too. So right now here in Costa Rica, for example, we're working with the presidency, the cabinet of the presidency for a regeneration strategy of 40% of the territory. I'm here with a few organizations like One Small Planet. There's also a venture fund for regeneration, and New Earth Ventures. We're also doing this crypto fund of funds to provide value. So as we weave all these pieces, we've been sort of talking around concepts such as Earth Treasury in multiple forms of capital, where we're piecing all those things together, and incredibly inspired and excited to have the Haifa DHO platform and its next iteration to come to life to really plug in all these pieces that are rapidly shaping up together. So there's a lot of vibration and excitement happening. Around regenerative civics, we have some low-hanging fruit of fascinating projects that are coming into our radar, and I would love to share those with you maybe at a later point, but that's a little bit on my two seeds to say hello.
Yep. So Franz, like Lucien, is also playing this kind of super connector, conductor role and weaving in all the different parts. So this is actually why we're forming Regen Civics, is we saw all this latent capacity out there that wasn't coordinating and organizing. So we said, yes, we have all this potential. Yes, we have all the desire. We have all the resources, but we're just not channeling it effectively. We don't have a trustful system for people to come together and pool their resources. So that's where this whole concept came from, is let's do a regenerative civics crowd pooling, where people can pool tokens together to represent financial value, but they could also pool their wisdom and experience by saying, hey, I'm going to fill these roles that are available in this organization, right? So part of the crowd pooling is we get to put up all the 10 forms of capital that we're looking for, and then people can apply to fill all those forms of value. So project says, not only do we need, $1 million worth of ether or whatever token, seeds or what have you, we also need 10 hectares of land. We need a permaculturist. We need 2 builders. We need, a healer, etc. And you can have the whole list of what the village actually needs, and people across the globe could then apply to fill these roles. And then the community who's contributing to the project are then all voting who they want to fill their initial organization structure before they go and launch it. So then everyone becomes founders. So that's kind of the concept we saw here, is we have all this potential, we have the land that's available, we have this desire for projects, we have the people who want to do it. Why aren't we doing it? And that's kind of what the do tools were all about, is these are the tokens that actually allow us to pool our value and then be acknowledged for that value. So I think that what was missing is that form of acknowledgement, that I can bring something, it gets reflected back, and then that gives me access to the community, or I can stay at the place and I can start meeting my needs. But more importantly, I can exit capitalism and into a new type of economic system. So we needed that exit vehicle, right? So anyway, that's kind of the general theme. So we had Lucien and Franz. There's a few other people that are part of the team, and they're not showed up to the call yet. So if they do, we'll introduce you to them. But I know Sydney will Stefan, you guys are new, and this is your first call. So I want to give you guys now space to introduce yourselves, same 90 seconds, and then also ask a couple questions if anything's needs clarifying, why we're here, what we're gathering for, anything like that is uncertain for you. And then after that, we can get into the agenda, which then I want Franz, you have some things to share. Lucien, I know it does as well. And then I want to get into what I shared in the Telegram, which is figuring out what criteria for the 12 initial projects we're looking for. So we have a lot of projects I know we're all working with, well more than 12. But recently we decided that we're going to focus on 12, with the 13th project being the new kind of the organization structure reform after we go through the 12. So the 12 will go through a cohort of actually launching their organization structure, setting up their projects, trialing it out for a first year, and we're going to learn together. And as we're learning together, we're creating this 13th structure, which we're going to use for the next season of cohorts. Etc. So every year we're creating and we're consciously improving on our organization, our economics, etc., etc. And that creates a new structure that we're creating each year. Cool. I said a whole lot, so I'm going to stop there and I'm going to now pass it to Sydney.
Well, I'm just like blown away. I feel like I'm a broken record. Every call I'm on with Rieki, I'm like, I need to just breathe for a second because I'm so excited. I'm just like, what? Yeah, it's such an honor to share this space with you guys. Like, I can't even believe that I get this opportunity. But to make it quick, before the pandemic hit, I ran an artist residency space in Chinatown, Boston. And I was doing like 4 to 5 events per week. When the pandemic hit, I had 3 different spaces. And I was like, oh shit, like, how am I going to survive now that events aren't a thing? So I got really into like growing my own food and exploring how to build my own house. And then I started planning social distance friendly experiences for people to learn about permaculture and sustainable construction. And I also learned about seeds, wrote a grant, got 200,000 seeds crypto to distribute to others that joined me on this journey of learning. So we did about like 20 different volunteer projects at homesteads and intentional communities throughout the Northeast region last year. And this year we have about 18 events so far on the calendar. We have 120 individuals who own a seeds wallet, and we still have seeds tokens to distribute. And we're in the process of kind of updating the products and services that our community members are willing to share for seeds. I'm also launching a fundraising platform where NFTs are a fundraising vehicle to drive resources to causes in need and the artists behind the works, and then to a social impact fund that's managed by a DAO. So basically we invite the world to share their causes, their initiatives, whether it's a traditional 501c3 or an eco-village DAO. And then we invite artists to submit relevant works wherever they want to drive energy. Then the world community votes on their favorite pieces, which influences which are minted and sold as fractionalized NFTs. So people like GoFundMe are working towards a fundraising goal, but through the fractions making up an art piece that drive resources to the cause, to the creator, to the project's platform development, and then to the social impact fund DAO. And the events I'm thinking could be augmented reality and virtual reality. So with people's phones or with a headset, they could join the gala and meet other people through voice chat and then buy the fraction of the piece. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I'm also trying to have permatours, the tour that I started, support seeds, because there's a plethora of volunteers that are trying to plug in, and permatours could support with that funneling. So that's it.
Epic. And I meant to share our previous conversation, which was so powerful. Thank you. But anyway, got locked out of Zoom. Long story short, Web 2 sucks. Yeah. But anyway, where it plugs in is we were planning with each one of the village projects or civics projects that we're launching would be tied in with an NFT project. I guess we would call it a crowdfunding campaign, but either way, yes, that people that are donating or at least investing into these projects, they would also receive art. And part of that art being solar punk and Regen Village arts. Like, we need to be dreaming up and envisioning more of what this 2030 civilization looks like and where we're going. We have, all the dystopia coming out of Hollywood, that's great, but we need more utopia coming out of our movement to help, inspire us. And that's why I thought it'd be really great to partner with Sydney and bring her into Regen Civics so that each one of the projects launching, they're doing some type of village art showcasing how beautiful of the new project that they're creating. And then that art itself is an NFT that people who are investing into the project can, own a share of that art. We can have a certain fixed number of them. And then as Sydney said, every time one of the art pieces changes hands, resources go back to the project, the artist, good causes, etc. So it's just a really fun idea, and thought, let's bring her in. And she's doing awesome stuff with tours, which is the other idea, is that anytime we get one of these villages set up, we want to do a festival where we gather there and we actually set them up. If we're doing an intentional community project, then we come together, we actually help build some of the infrastructure, put in the permaculture gardens, etc. So that's kind of the model we're working with here, that every one of the villages and projects that incubate, Lucien helps them dream up, and everything he's doing with United Planet. And Phoebe, she's not here, but she's doing Moral Imaginations. That's kind of helping incubate the idea. And Sydney, I think where you can come in then is actually when we hone in on and do an event to launch the village or project itself. And Lucien, I know you have a ton of experience there too. So I'm just trying to help everyone see where we all kind of fit into this. So I'll keep doing that, and I will pass it to Will. And Stephen.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, Will and Stephen. Okay, so listening to all of that and understanding the purpose of this call and who's in this, the energy behind all of this, I've been wondering what aspect I've been involved specific to this topic is
Well, I think
you're breaking up. Well,
Yeah.
I could speak.
you should turn your video off, probably. Sadly.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah,
That's better.
Okay. Yeah, so I was wondering what aspects to speak into, because there's so many different things, and I feel to keep it on point for this call, I just want to talk about the village that we're currently living in and having this call from. So the Universe Ministry is a spiritual, conscious, and regenerative community. It's bringing together
We're still losing you, Will.
other communities and the last time of our own called the hearing you. Right,
maybe we
about,
can.
Maybe I can introduce Will for a second. How does that sound, brother? Yeah,
that sounds good to me.
I'm going to do that. So Will and Stephen, they're both in Guatemala, actually living on site at one of these villages that we might be working with. They've also been spending a lot of time in the design and organization space. So also, how do we connect legal entities to these new villages? So they've set up a spiritual ministry, for example, because that's something the Catholic Church designed to have their own kind of exit from capitalism, because they wanted to be isolated. So as you know, the current organization structures of the world were getting set up, spiritual powers, i.e. the Catholic Church, created kind of separate vehicles to be able to organize and house themselves and store assets and do all sorts of interesting things. So that's a world that they've been exploring and looking at, is like, what type of legal entities can we establish to be able to house ownership of the land, ownership of the projects itself, that aren't actually obligated under some of the rules that other legal entities might be, such as corporations, etc. And I think that is an important part, along with setting up the nonprofits, or Wyoming has a DAO LLC. So there's a couple different legal vehicles. So they've been experimenting on that front, running a village itself, and doing a lot of stuff with designing new funding vehicles in Web3. So looking at how to do pooling of investments, how the value flows through when people are pooling investments and you still have an organization to run. So what does that look like? Who's sharing value and how? Infrastructure to actually invest in projects. So that was the other kind of vehicle that they were plugging in here, is the investment arm, and being able to pool funds and resources and invest into new regenerative villages and regenerative startups. Yeah, so I might have missed a whole bunch. There's another call recording with them that I can share, and you guys can get a deeper intro to what Will and Stephen are both bringing to the table. Also, Stephen has a depth of knowledge of the Web3 crypto world. And we've been talking with him about doing like a refi dex, for example. So all of the villages and projects that are here, they have one user interface where they are swapping tokens between each other. So let's say if it's a village living project and you need a token to stay there, you go to this place to trade your village token with another village token. So you can move to that place, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is kind of the exchange where all the different regen projects could then be swapping all of their tokens and value. And Stephen and I have been getting kind of deep into that world and crypto and what makes sense on that front. So that kind of helps introduce them a little bit. Any questions about them that I might say again?
On the call, just so that you don't miss him, so that he can also be integrated into the call.
Yes, Neil, we're just doing 90-second intros, and then I'm elaborating a little bit of how I see everyone plugging in, so we all know what roles we're playing. So I can give you kind of a space to say hello, if you'd like it.
Sure. Hey, everybody. Well, I guess my interest in this is my whole career has been on like building physical places. Started off with towns and urban planning, urban development. Then I wanted to scale down to buildings because there was so much talk and not enough implementation. So I wanted to scale down to buildings as well. And I found like, I'm going to put in the chat a link to a project that I think is a model of an eco-village in a building. $16 million project with 600 owners to collectively own it. And I'm thinking this is just so modeled for what we're doing. They're about to complete the project in a few months. And so it might not be the best candidate to actually plug into it because they've already got their culture, but it's how do we apply that to other projects? And so there's other groups I'm working with that want to take this, are interested in taking this, because no one really knows how it really works, right? The dual tool, the DHO tool, and apply it to fractional ownership and NFTs applied to real estate and collective governance and doing all the stuff, pro-social, partnerism, regenerative behavior, all the stuff. So that's why I'm interested in the Regen Civics thing with the 12 pilot projects. And I'm all about literally building what I call catalyst hubs, physical places where people are being the change, talking about the change. And the last thing I'll share is that Franz had visited, I think, Regen tribe in Tulum, Mexico, where one person sponsored 10 people to live and work together and just talk about regenerative projects 24/7. And I was there, I was able to stay there 3 days when I had COVID and I had nowhere to go. And they all had COVID, so we all basically was perfect. And the first night I was there, we geeked out talking about seeds for 3 hours, where we're onboarding each other. I'm saying, oh my God, this is what exactly I'm talking about. Where I'm in this catalyst hub of what we're talking about. So that's what I would love to bring to this group, this DHO, and actually start being in these places, right? Yeah. So that's my story.
Yeah, and Neil is an absolute systems thinking wizard. So I think another place where, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least where I see you plugging in, is helping the groups that are coming together think about their culture, think about how to step out of, the domination culture that we've been encultured into for our entire lives and step into, partnerism, collaboration. How do we regain self-sovereignty and then build systems that support that, encourage that, facilitate that, or enforce it if necessary. So I think that's a really interesting part where I see Neil and I having a lot of fun, and Paul, a big role for me too, is helping these organizations actually think about their culture and go through a process of creating a different culture. And he's tons of information, Be the Change, he shared that link in there, that's run by him. And that's just an infinite resource of how to think about designing new cultures and designing new systems. So you've been at this for a while, and deep bow of gratitude for you and everything you've done here. And thank you for joining us here. Do you have anything else you want to share before we keep going?
Well, I just want to say that in the mom call we're just on, the last point that we shared was the last proposal that was passed, I think, for a while. It was a shift from rewarding the personal invites to what do we do with the 2,000 seeds. So I guess it was officially voted in a couple of days ago, but we're going to onboard 100 people to become what we call change maker citizens. So adding a little thing into it. And then so the onboarder who mutually agrees to onboard somebody who's untethered gets remunerated with 2,000 seats. It's the same as the referral reward when they become a citizen, but they also have to complete the partnerism course and also share their regenerative project with the seeds community. And then, you know, when the mom called, they said, can we link the Ambassador Academy to that? And I said, well, in different ways we could talk about that. But like, it's a way of like, let's up the level of regenerative understanding that people have. And then the last thing I'll share, this is a side point, but I actually relate to investment because I'm working with a group called the Regenerative Living Institute that doesn't quite have their website set up yet. But Leah Gimmons, if that name sounds familiar, is the one person I know that's leading a way of measuring objective regenerative projects. Is it really objective and having actual real criteria? Because I know working with developers and investors, that's my background. That's what they're looking for. They're not going to invest in anything regenerative unless they know for sure that their money is going to something that they can tell the people they're getting their money from that this is really regenerative.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think there's a couple dues that, well, I think lots of dues are going to be taking this question on. But that is something I think we can also address. And every one of the projects that launch under Regenerative Civics Incubator is a bioregion, a region, and seeds, which means they're earning a harvest based on how regenerative they are and some other impacts that seeds cares about. But that is something that I think we need to continue honing. And that fits into, Lucien, what you've been talking about with this global game, where we're kind of like having fun, just like sports teams, where we're kind of competing and enjoying that process, but we're competing to regenerate our bioregions. You know, we're saying, oh yeah, their water is actually drinkable now. Oh, they've reached drinkable water before we did. Like, dang it, you know, come on, step it up. Let's go out there and plant more water cleaning plants. You know, so we can have a lot of fun with that. I think that's something that we can start measuring. And then that also connects to the incredibly well-funded world. There's trillions of dollars in assets, you know, sitting there to move into regenerative projects that's going to store and capture wealth better than previous tools can. And I think that's also what we're doing here, is being able to issue these tokens that are backed by land, that are serving regeneration, that have positive impacts. So we can say, actually, no, the whole idea that you can't make money doing good is only because that existed in a broken paradigm and a broken economic system. But if we change the economic rules, we're going to say you're actually going to make way more money doing good. But now we have to actually prove and map what is good. And that's where it gets really interesting and that's kind of the real role of each one of the projects, is they're going to approach good and regeneration from a different lens. And that's exactly what we need, because we don't know what is, quote, good and regenerative. We have a concept, we have some patterns, but that's going to morph into a whole lot of different approaches. So I think that's something we're encouraging with Regenerative Civics, and why we're running it in cohorts and open learning, etc., is we're experimenting collectively and learning from each other. What is regeneration? What does it mean to live in harmony with our natural world? You know, how do we create a sustainable civilization? You know, all these really meta questions that we haven't quite answered with, you know, humanity right now. And it's a reason we're collapsing across all the different spectrums. That's it. I feel like I was just going to keep going. So I'm going to shut myself up. And Neil, you bring so much to this, and every one of our calls gets so deep and credible. So thank you for being here. Cool. So now that was kind of the intro. Awesome. That took about 30 minutes. I think that's great. So we've got another 30 minutes for some of the agenda items. So Franz, I want to pass it to you. You said you had some things you want to bring up, and then Lucien, we're going to plug into you for the same thing. And then I want to go over the criteria for the first 12 projects and make sure we touch on that before we close today, and see if it's even necessary for us to actually build an invite for different projects. So a type form or whatever. If so, we'll do that, and then we'll put it out there and let projects apply. But I believe between the 7 of us here and the other people that are part of Regen Civics, we already have the 12. So what I want to do is, again, identify what are those 12 criteria, and then see if we already have them within our community. Okay, so I'll pass it to Franz.
Yeah, there's a few things that I want to quickly touch base upon. One is we have this beautiful partnership with New Air Ventures. And these guys are proposing for us to to do an integrated sort of newsletter where we're already reaching out and expanding our directories of communities. We're doing this essentially crowd pooling. So they are right now operating as some human resources to kind of go through the most impactful things in the ecosystem and really start communicating this effectively through a newsletter. So that's one invitation for all of us to really figure out a system to plug in this information pieces and have it be harvested and disseminated. One piece of that will be sort of integrating directories in terms of addresses. So that's also an invitation if you guys feel called to figure out how to aggregate our networks and become the network of networks. It's an invitation. Another layer with this is this partnership right now has I think more than 150 land-based projects in 54 countries. So to get the 12 projects that we're looking is going to be very easy. So the structure is going to be, what are the low-hanging fruits? What are the strongest stories that we can come up with and that sort of potentialize the highest potential for regeneration? That's kind of some of the criteria that I would love to put into that. And also echoing what Neil says, Leah Gibbons, she has an amazing framework for really showcasing what regenerative is. I haven't seen a better one than the one she has. So that's a great starting point. And also what I wanted to really piece into that, some of the things that are in my radar right now that are excited to be considered. For example, right now, I think I mentioned briefly last time, but we've been approached by essentially the right hand of Erdogan in Turkey. And they want to experiment with our tools, with what we're doing, and they're providing a land concession of 48,000 hectares for regenerative agriculture. That one is probably one with high potential because we also have support from the banking of agriculture, from a lot of the influential families, but also from the grassroots. Right now here in Costa Rica, we have this framework for the regeneration of Costa Rica, which is starting right now a lot of the work in the Osa Peninsula, which is the Earth's one of the most biodiverse hot zones in the world. So I think that's a really interesting opportunity that we can already activate a lot of the big funders and universities and institutions that are playing in that ecosystem. So I think also the story of Costa Rica pushing forward as the first regenerative nation is super strong. Another story that we're weaving is for example, energy sovereignty. We have right now a strong alliance with the government of Liechtenstein. 5 out of 11 municipalities are signing up for experimenting with the energy DAO. And I think as we unlock that, that's also a very powerful jurisdiction because it's a small seed of a microstate, which already has been showcasing the highest levels of democracy and also pioneer at the front line of what it is to be at the edge of the financial system. That's how they maintain the float through the history. And they're also recognizing the work we've done to keep in that projection. So that's all another thing. Another layer we have right now, the mushroom farm. There's a legendary mushroom farm in California. And the person who I'm right now here with has a vision for this. It used to be a former Campbell soup factory, and right now has the vision of a fully autonomous. They have all the frameworks, all the structures, all the plans with nature-based technology that also I think would be a really powerful thing to come to life. Yeah, those are 3 pretty short on my radar that I think are pretty powerful ones that we could consider. Also in general, Guatemala, where I was the last 3 weeks, we have right now massive support from the national government, from local governments, from new political parties. There's an indigenous political party. I don't know how much we want to involve in the politics yet, but it's actually called Seeds, Semillas. And yeah, a lot of synchronicity there. That also the vision of a Mesoamerican bioregion is also taking shape very strongly and very rapidly, where we have already universities working on ecological, biological corridors, uniting southern Mexico all the way to Panama and into Colombia too. So these are really, whole systems, large-scale regeneration efforts to consider in terms of how we select this 12 project. Yeah, and the contexts are very diverse, but if we can really find the ones that unleash the most regenerative potential and create that story, I think we can continue iterating forward.
Franz, I love you. So actually this whole thing started with regenerative villages. We thought, let's focus more on new intentional communities and people coming together to meet their needs. But Franz was one of the early ones that like blew that wide open and be like, no, there's a lot more capacity for regenerative, actions that we could be taking. We're like, oh yes. Okay. So that helped expand our potential there. So thank you for that. So a couple of things is one, this, I'll share it next because it's not letting me for whatever reason. But our Git book, where we actually go over the regenerative villages and start sharing templates, I think that's how we really start holding the nexus, or holding the node rather, of the movement, is helping people with different templates and libraries and recipes for how to do these projects. So again, walking them through and making it really easy to do your own crowd pooling. I think that's the best way we can help this movement right now, and open sourcing all of those learning journeys. So I think that's kind of the role we're moving into, I say at the moment. Does anyone have anything they want to share with Franz? Because I was going to keep going, but I feel like I'm talking too much and there's so much wisdom at the table. So does anyone have any reflections they want to?
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many cool projects, opportunities, intentional communities that are super open to volunteer support, and they're focused on regeneration and aligned with seeds. So I'm wondering, like, I guess I could just share with you guys all the forms and you can read all the responses, or I can share the ones that I think you guys might most be interested in. I don't know if you've heard about the Mexico property, 1,500 acre property with relics and like a castle, and they're building a sound lab and a mushroom lab, and it's a partner of seeds. So many like things like this are cropping up. So I want to know what you guys want to focus on so I can share with you what's most relevant, essentially.
Quick question there. Do you mean the Gregorio von Hildebrand, Hacienda Tabi for the Mexico project? Or is it?
I'm not sure. Nadim,
I think so.
Nadim shared it with me. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Gregorio was an early adopter in seeds and has also been weaving. So that one is one of also high priority pieces of land, I would say, in this ecosystem. Happy to share the decks.
Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a separate group within Seeds. We can move it to our own Discord, sorry, the Seeds Discord, but we can move it to our own Discord soon. And Ryan, another one of the members of the Regen Civics group that y'all will meet soon, he actually created a Discord group for the Regen Civics project. So once we're ready for it, we can move into our own one. But anyway, I'm going to create a couple channels in there, and we can just start sharing all the different projects in one channel, and we can call that one, prospective projects, and just a real quick 2 sentences about it and a link to the project. And then we can use that as a resource to go scan. So I think add all the projects there, and I'll tag you all into the Discord after this. And then the other one could just be the general channel, so we can start asynchronously coordinating. Each week we have this call and we can start inviting more people on it. I think, my model has been this, is we just leave it really open at the beginning. We have a wide invitation. We kind of see what, that invitation attracts and the gravity, and then see who sticks around. And that eventually coalesces into an actual organization that's, really effective at doing stuff together, because they had to be to get to that point. So that's kind of how I see Regen Civics growing, and how we can all then form that new foundation. And then I also see maybe a couple months from now, we officially form Regen Civics as a do, reflect tokens back to everyone. I would even say equally, if someone's showing up at that point and they've been here before contributing, we just say everyone's on the same footing when we actually launch, and then we reflect tokens back out and acknowledge the value we brought to that point. And what that means is actually, showing up to these conversations, continue to weave, help us select projects, and actually go through the process of crowdfunding. What I'll get into in a later call is how we can actually just do that. And I want to, the last call, which I'll share with you all, we talked about having the launch on the March equinox. So I think that's March 20th or 21st. And actually having projects, the 12 selected by that point, and then we start the crowd pooling campaigns then. So we already have the organization structure for each one of the 12 kind of mapped out. So that's the work we're doing from here to there. So they know all the roles they need filled, all the land requirements that they need, all the different forms of capital and wisdom that they need at the table, as well as their financial assets. And we're going to take all of that together. And on March, we're going to launch it and show all 12 projects and say, this is the 12 projects. This is what they're all looking for. And then all the change makers out there that want to be part of change, They can look at those 12 projects and be like, yep, that one fits me. That's where I fit in. Cool. And then they can go and we can kick this all off. Cool. So that's where I can transition right after Lucien. I keep trying to weave this all into one coherent thread. So anyone can cut me off if I'm not doing a good job doing that. Lucien, I'll weave you in and then we've got some time.
Great. No, you're doing a great job, Rieki. Thank you. Thank you. And so many epic projects here. This is super exciting. And yeah, so firstly, I'm very happy to offer the up game as a methodology for like bringing 2030 visions and particularly this hypothesis of outcome-based financing. I'd be really interested to bring a piece to the Regen Civics Accelerator, being like part of what we're doing is stepping into the future of what it is that we're collectively looking to achieve, and then reverse engineering the milestones and then putting financing goals to those milestones. I think it would be a really interesting new way of like positioning our theory of change and saying like, look, we can finance community transformation and through outcome-based financing, essentially almost like impact bonds, but at a community level. So that's one thing I wanted to put in the mix with the up game. The other one is there's numerous projects I'm aware of. There's one I've definitely here locally in Ibiza that I think would be a great candidate. I've mentioned before, CanJoy. It's a year-round like transformational learning regenerative hub, basically for it's going to be a year-round kids program, learning about regenerative agriculture, learning about essentially like growing up in a regenerative world. And Vicky, who's an amazing leader, is kind of spearheading that, and I think it's going to be really successful, and they're raising money real time, and I think it's a really good way of being involved in the Ibiza emergence. The other ones I wonder whether are relevant, that I just thought were worth kind of sharing. One is David Solomon, who you know, Rieki, is launching Best.Earth, and it's essentially like an asset-backed. He's trying to transform how we like a really big area, which is like how we basically have like ethically sourced resources. Things like cobalt and etc. that we need for technology. It's a big thing to bite off, and I think it would be worth looking at that as a potential option. And otherwise, I would say like there's the Up Games leagues that can become a driver for potential candidates into the accelerator. So I'd love to be able to be almost like a kind of like a referral engine for organizations to come through this and like design it actually as like an integrated DAO ecosystem. And just from a word on structure, is the way I've been thinking about that is it functions a little bit like a DAO of DAOs, where it's sort of a fractal model where we have the ecosystem, and then each topic is its own. It can essentially raise a fund and can start to have a treasury within the ecosystem, and then each project is a kind of fractal of that. And so I've been thinking a lot about what that would look like, and feel that that's something for us to design together. And I'd love to utilize that design that we come up with inside the Up Game. So for me, this is like blueprinting something that we could be a partner to utilize it as part of the way that we support coalitions and communities.
Well, the model you're talking about is a fractal, a circular treasury structure, which is what IFA has been building for the last couple of years. So exactly. Planning on having that ready in March. So at least the alpha for all these projects to be able to launch and use that tool to do that. So I just want to clarify with you, and we can do this on a future call. We're going to get into all the actual roles and what the actual circles are, what we call them. And then that will be one of the 12, could be, at least if it fits our criteria, it could be one of the 12 models. Is actually United Planet is one of these 12 projects. And it
Exactly.
has all of these circles within it, and each circle has a role to hold that circle. Each circle represents one of the regenerative development goals, right? Each circle has its own treasury, etc. So that could be one of the regenerative projects, right?
Exactly. I'd love that, and I think that would be a really good way for this to be. Like if we can utilize both the product and the methodology, we can be then like an on-ramp for others to come into the ecosystem. So yeah.
Any reflections, Lucien? Yep.
And one other quick one to dots to connect is, Sydney, what you mentioned about the NFT side, in being able to give artists, for example, the ability to fundraise for causes through that side. I think this could be something that we could look to integrate here as well into the product, to give, like, not just art pieces, actually to film content, for example, like even ideas. I think we can create a model where we can even potentially citizenship into the ecosystem could be an NFT. I saw that's how Satoshi Island is doing it, which is really interesting. They've got a fascinating model how they're creating this like physical land-based project and metaverse. That each citizen, they're giving out 21,000 citizenships, and each one is an NFT that can be fractionally, interesting.
I just want to, I would be remiss if I didn't, but I just want to mention that I think the NFT route, this is hugely my personal bias and what I prefer in the world, but I see a lot of the NFT route being kind of a continuation of domination and separation culture, and kind of like capitalism 2.0. How do we make access to our civilization as scarce as possible and drive? It's weird, and I don't know how much of a role that necessarily plays in the worlds we're creating. For example, like NFTs are being touted as a way to give artists more money. Like, no, that's just a way to turn your creations into a monetized vehicle. A way to give artists more money is to have a universal basic income for artists, and then they can just give their stuff away for free, which when I talk to most artists, that's what they want. They hate having to like come up with a number and, actually put a number on their art just so they can put a roof over their head. Like, they don't want to do that. So I think we can create different cultures where the regenerative village, like, it has a role for village artists. And this is someone who's just literally paid by the village to create art for the village, or for the community. And then communities can just pay for these roles. Same thing with healers. Like, healers don't want to charge to heal people. They have a desire to heal, like, at least, again, a lot of the ones I talk to. So again, this is my cultural biases. I'm just coming in heavy here, and I just want to, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that because it's so strong in my world.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been questioning this a lot, of course, as I'm building this platform, and it's just becoming clear to me that it's more and more about the utility, not even like what you're looking at, right? And of course, we want to see the creators paid. Right now, we're working on a pre-launch collection to build hype and community before all of the platform's functionality is ready. And I was thinking of partnering with Art Lifting, which is an organization that connects artists who are disabled or who are homeless with buyers like hotels and commercial spaces. And so those artists could be the creators of the initial collection, and the benefactor could even be that organization. But I was also wanting to return to your idea, Rieki, around having themed collections and events. So augmented and virtual reality events where, this collection is featuring all the regenerative eco-villages, and you can see art depicting these visions. And then the money goes to the creator, to the eco-villages, to our social impact DAO, to then decide as a community of collectors, causes, artists, and the team to decide how to use that pool to further drive impact. So same with AR, VR, everyone's like, we don't want Ready Player One. We don't want to like abandon this world and just like be in the virtual world. But like, if it's providing inner city kids who can't access lab equipment with state-of-the-art, equipment to create, opportunities for learning, then it's like, okay, there's always going to be negative in these new spaces. But Yeah.
Resisting the urge to respond and facilitate instead. Does anyone else have any reflections they want to bring in for Lucien or what was said here before we move on to the last item for today?
Can you hear me right now?
Yeah.
Just listening to Lucien talk about the DAO of DAOs and having sub DAOs within the United Planet stack. It just got me wondering whether we're here showing up as the Starseed Village DHO potential, or whether we're showing up at the universe as a DAO of DAOs. So the universe ministry itself has a DHO and the Starseed Village is a sub DAO within that. So just wanted to share that curiosity with you, Rieki, and also I guess it depends on what the criteria is for this specific accelerator container. And then to riff on the NFTs and citizenship and things like that, it can easily be represented as a badge within the DHO, and I don't think citizenship is something you should be able to buy, something that is earned and given based on values and contribution. But I do see NFTs as a tool for funding, for financing, and also distributing value back to every stakeholder and having that really clearly defined. So it plays a role, and I'm not against them, but I fully feel what you're saying, Rieki, and support you in the way you think.
Well, what I want to be really clear on here is I'm not being dogmatic, nor do I think the Regenerative Village Civics Incubator should be dogmatic, meaning like we provide these tools and we want to show a diversity of cases. Like, so each village is going to have its bias. So I really want to continue to say this because it's so important. And this is what I think humanity needs is most of our conflicts are just people that see the world a different way being forced to live next to each other. So that is what, separates the different projects, as they say, you can't buy access into our village. It's only going to be earned, and this is how you've got to earn it. Every village might, approach that a little bit differently, while other villages, and I know these ones are going to exist because they already do, and they're very, libertarian focused, and they say, no, money is how you buy access to this. And everyone has an equal financial stake. And that's how we have skin in the game. And that makes a lot of sense too. And some people love that. And for coordinating under certain cultures, that's going to work great. So the reality is like different projects are going to have different models that work well for them. And it's our role as a container to, I think, just be open to all of that. To document what's working and what's not working and kind of, provide the ecosystem and the tools to continue to experiment here. So I want to keep bringing that back. Let's definitely all have our really strong opinions, but make sure that as a container, we're not being dogmatic, or we're not letting those opinions, drive the tools or drive, what's possible. It's a weird dance that I think we have to stay in.
One thing I just wanted to say quickly, because you mentioned documenting and William brought up co-universe. A big thing for permatours is increasing the reach of our education through documenting our efforts and then baking them into online courses or putting them on YouTube. And I see collaborating with co-universe being super aligned or feasible. And then also what I see for Starseed, and feel free to jump in, it just seems like such a beautiful opportunity and case study for the DAO templates that Rieki has referenced, and also just like a platform for how we can funnel all the abundance of volunteer support that there is in Seeds and Permatours and these other networks. So it feels like a really beautiful opportunity for us to like test out and experiment with a lot of these things.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And the culture which we would like to experiment with is that money doesn't equal voice. Money equals return. If you see the opportunity and you want to benefit from a financial perspective and invest money into the village or whatever it is aspect of that, then there's a return. But it doesn't equal voice. It doesn't equal voting power. That's something that's earned through contribution and participation. So we'd love to be the pioneers of that experiment and see, who with money is interested in putting money into something that doesn't give them a voice, but can they see the beauty of that and how they're empowering a group of people that have the heart of the project and understand what's going on and hold the vision and need the freedom without an investor coming in and saying, no, we've given you the money and we're going to stop you from doing what you want to do because we think we know better. And just to riff on the like organizational and structure perspective, Sid, you're totally right. We have a huge influx of energy here. Yesterday was the first day of the Rainbow Gathering. We've got hundreds of people that we're expecting to come and we want to give them a way to stay. And to organize that, So we definitely see the DHO as a way for people to be able to log in and see what's happening and to apply and just have a better handle of all the energy that's coming in. So yeah, thanks for speaking into that, Sid. I think Stephen's got something to share.
Yeah, just kind of on the artist fund up. I really like what Lucien said about gamifying this process, and I do see it as a bit of a dry old system of infrastructure bond funding that we get a chance to liven up, and that it can be just that a percentage of it gets to go back to the artist that's just living in that community, not so much selling that art piece, but just getting to live that life of producing and having their needs met. And I really like what Rieki said on our last meeting about weaving this launch together. I mean, to me, this is a really unique opportunity to meet everyone's needs within a given regenerative village project through this joint fund up. And just taking it back to the gamification, I see that it's going to be very fun to invest in Starseed Village. I see that you'll get dividends, of course, like some kind of a financial reward for holding onto the token or some type of a staking thing. But I see timeshare like NFT airdrops, perks that you can get to attend the experiential classes around here. And it's a big part of what we're doing is really not to have to put a price tag on every class, whether you're gonna have to get charged this much for the yoga and this much for your mushroom session in the afternoon and this much for your tour of the permaculture. And, that I really want to have just an experiential product here that the investors see as when they want to cash in their NFTs or gift those to someone else, they have easy avenues to bless people with a connection to the property they've invested in, but without having to feel any of the normal worry of having to vote and control that organization, but just be free to let it live and breathe and grow.
Oh, so I saw that Neil wants to head off and close out. I don't know if there's any reflections for Stephen before then. I just want to add one last thing, which is an invitation to Therese Loughton from Momentum Collective. If you're happy for her to join next week's call, she's activating land-based intentional projects in Nicaragua and Costa Rica, and I would love to integrate them with this framework and this launch somehow. But yeah, over to you, Neil.
Great. I loved being in this group. I love the energy in this meeting. I love everyone's passion and the practical focus on real projects getting connected and collaborated with. So appreciate every minute, and I look forward to the next one. And Sydney will connect. I'll try and get you into this course somehow, because like I said, it's the ratio of 9-to-1 for men to women. All right, until next time.
Thanks,
Bye,
Neil.
everyone.
Maybe just to close out super quick then is, because I don't think we can have the depth and breadth of the conversation we need to, most of the people not here. So I think we have two different calls. We can keep this one, which is each week more of the open networking call where we keep bringing in new energy, but then Phoebe and Franz just messaged me both suggesting that we have a call tomorrow and we have a second call each week. That's just the core team. That's really part of the core members moving things forward. And then that one could be more focused. So we don't need to spend time, introducing each other again or anything like that. So we're not talking about the meta picture. We're actually, moving things forward. So yes, so Lucien and everyone who wants to invite people to the calls next week, let's keep that on the Tuesday calls, my Tuesday at least. We're inviting people and we can keep that one open. And then we can have a Wednesday call each week that's more focused just on momentum and moving things forward. But I think the majority of our effort could still be async and we can just work on the document directly, which I will actually just do real quick, ask you guys. I will send this to you. And then there's a space right here for all the different projects. So you see right here, we have Valhalla, and then we just have all the pages. Each one of these that you have a project you're working with that you think might be a good fit to be part of the 12, just put a name here and a description of the project and what it's up to, just basically the pitch of the project. This is going to serve a couple needs. One, for people that are looking for projects to join. This is how they learn about the project. Two, for us to be able to narrow down which 12. Three, this will also be a place for the projects to keep major updates they want to share with the community, what's happening, anything like that. So there's a spot right here for co-create globally. So all the projects, the one above it right here is for us. So this is where we're sharing with the community what support they're getting, right? And where they can come to for all the different stuff. So you can come to seeds, and then it talks about all the different seeds, things seeds is offering, for example, or the Regen Civics Accelerator itself and the things we're offering. But then you see here, a lot of the projects you guys are working with are mentioned. If it's not here, you can add a project. So I'm going to give you all creator access, and how that works is come up here, you click edit. And then once you're in edit mode, you do all the edits you want to do, and then you can click down here and click merge, and that'll update those edits. So make sure you click edit, you do your changes, click merge. So when you want to add a new page, you can come over here, click add, and it'll give you a new page. And then you can add a new organization that you want to bring to the Regen Civics. And yeah, I think that's what we do for this week, is just get everything settled up in here. And then tomorrow's call, we can dive in more around what criteria we're looking for to be part of the 12 projects. So we kind of set the stage a lot for that today, but tomorrow's call, we'll just start with that topic and dive into it. So that's my closeout, and then maybe we can just pass it around and everyone can do their own closeout, and we can go there from there. So I'll pass it to Sydney.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I know you shared that the 12 different properties, you're hoping that they're a diverse range of environments and I don't know, criteria. Do you have like a list of what boxes need to be checked?
That's literally what I'm talking about us doing tomorrow. I have my own lists, but I know so do a lot of other people in this group, that they have their own criteria. So it's about bringing that all together and actually defining what we are all looking for. Yeah.
Okay, because there's like 40 places that I could, like from last year and what's upcoming. So I'm just trying to think like how I can narrow it down. Maybe is it like places that have the capacity for people to live?
Yeah, I mean, I think the criteria, if I'm just going to start speculating to set the stage for tomorrow, it's one, projects that are ready to go right now, so they've already put in foundation. So it's not the projects that have an idea and they're looking for a way to kind of get started. That'll come later, because there's already so many projects that already have land, they already have momentum, but they're just looking for a way to organize better, coordinate better, have more impact, invite more people into it. So we really would like the 12 to all be really successful. So we want them to be really close to already being successful, right? Because this cohort is about modeling success and learning best practices and all that. So we don't want to have 12 failures, because then that'll look bad.
I mean, that's really good to know, because there are a couple of places that have just shown up and they're kind of like a playground. Like they're like, whatever you guys want to do that's sustainable and regenerative, we don't have anything, like come build a compost toilet. And then there's like the Mexico property that has like a giant castle and it just like needs to be filled with good energy. But still there's like a lot of things to be worked out. But anyways, that gives me a good basis for refining the list.
And then of the 12, we want them to be culturally diverse across the globe. So again, this could be a global thing that we can build momentum for globally. And then people can look up there and be like, oh, cool, I can find a project in our region. So we want to just do a few projects in the Americas, some in Europe, Africa, Asia, etc. So that is one of the other criteria, is to make sure they're biologically diverse so we can learn the most. And then diverse from the perspective of what their purpose is. So we don't want just 12 villages. At least this is stuff I've been hearing lately. So it'd be great if we're doing like a local food project. Franz mentioned several projects that are very diverse, like working with municipalities in Liechtenstein. So it'd be really interesting if the first 12 are a wide diversity, where we maybe only have 6 projects that are really focused on actually living together and meeting needs directly and doing what we call a village.
Oh, thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions or reflections on any of that? Cool. Well, maybe Sydney, you can do a closeout or pass it off if you feel complete.
Yeah. Just feeling really grateful again, like excited. I can't believe I get to meet with you guys, connect with you guys, co-create. And yeah, it's just, we're living the dream. I'm so inspired. So thank you. Pass it to Lucien. Yeah.
Thank you, Sydney. Feeling very mutual. I love these gatherings. It's super inspiring. Yeah, Rieki, let's you and I think about the really just how we can integrate the United Planet mission and Regen Civics mission, because there's so much there, and I'm all for stronger together. So there's that. And the other one I wanted to raise is, have you guys seen Trove? Have you looked at Trove? I can put the link in here. Rieki, have you seen it? Catalyst.network. You've seen that?
I don't think so.
It's an interesting, they were just on the BFI, Buckminster Fuller Institute, just did a gathering this weekend, and I saw a demo of the product, and it was, they've just done some really nice kind of just UI around listing projects, listing financing needs, being able to associate with different communities. It's like a very elegant community solution.
Wait, who's behind it?
It is, give me one moment. Vincent Arena.
No, I guess I haven't heard of it. That would be great. If we want to connect with them, then we can bring them into one of these next open calls, and they can share their tool and platform, and we can see if we use that to be able to showcase all the different projects. But now we don't necessarily have one integrated UI for that.
That's kind of where I was thinking, because it's been an area that I've been developing in previous to what I being, representing Brave New. There was many of us there, but it's I'll put the link in here. It's catalyst.network, and check it out. It's got some product overlap with Haifa, but could potentially be integrated in a really nice way. And I think it could be integrated across all of their communities. So it's like it's kind of the missing piece that I felt could build out the social layer, and like then we'd need to think, how would we use Discord, etc. So I'll message this here.
Epic. Anything else for your closeout, Lucien?
Anything else for the closeout? I would say no. Please invite Vicky. I'm going to catch up with David tomorrow, Solomon tomorrow, Bess, and just excited to be here and excited to find that role. And Key, and I would say, I think there's something cooking here that could be a beautiful co-creation of many different organizations coming to create this team of teams. And that's my big prayer, big intention for 2022, is that we remember that we're on this one meta team, and how we design the incentives when we're in a world that it sort of incentivizes the opposite. The incentives to be on that one team, that one meta team, I think is going to put us in a, it's really this place, like the digital commons.
Cool.
Yeah.
Team of teams. Yeah.
Team of teams. Yeah.
Cool.
Team of teams, DAO of DAOs, movement of movements, community of communities, It's been, yeah.
Well, with that,
one other thing I want to throw in the mix is, I wonder whether we might be able to apply for a grant for what we've already been putting together from DevX DAO, because I think it's a curious. They're giving out decent sized grants, and I wonder if it would be relevant. Rieki, you're probably going to know more about that than me, but they got something like 16% of Casper's token. So they've got something like, I don't know, 2 billion technically to give out as grants. They're not giving anything like that out yet, but it's like they are doing fairly sizable grants, and I think we're quite a good candidate for that.
I absolutely think the work we're doing with Regen Civics, and if we're movement of movements, that means we have to be non-dogmatic and non-prescriptive, which means I think we want to work with a lot of different DAO platforms. That's why it's very intentionally, I even put in the Regen Civics list, like, yeah, there's the HIFA, but there's also some other DAO platforms. Like, I think our role as Regen Civics really is to make all of this happen and provide the tools and resources. Then it's up to me, who's part of HIFA, to make sure we're building tools that are most useful to this, and other groups could be doing that too. And other groups' tools are better, perfect, because the goal is the meta team to building regenerative civilization. Because if that happens, the whole reason behind capitalism, competition breaks down, because you're competing in capitalism to gain your own security, to meet your own needs, to feel secure in the world, and all the reasons that are driving our insane behaviors in capitalism, right? But if we actually succeeded at creating a regenerative civilization, whatever team does it, right, then we're in a new paradigm where none of that really matters. So it's kind of interesting that if we succeed, or if anyone succeeds, then we all kind of win. And if we really remember that, then we kind of don't have this concept of competition, which also kind of bothers me sometimes today when people come here, they're like, oh yeah, you're doing regenerative civics launching, cool, who's your competitors? It's like, we don't have any competitors. Like, oh no, you do. Now you're just talking woo-woo spiritual talk. It's like, no, we literally don't, because if they created a regenerative civilization, I would win, because I could be part of theirs. Because if they truly succeeded at building regenerative economy, it would acknowledge all the work we've already done. So really, we would just get absorbed into it. Whichever one ends up winning, they would have to design the protocol that acknowledges all the work all the other ones have done. That's the only way to win, is to integrate it, right? So then we've already won. So it doesn't matter who does it. So I really want to keep bringing that out there, that we all, it's not just lip service. Like, if anyone succeeds, we really do actually succeed. And that's not talking about the second order benefits of, not having planetary collapse and maintaining civilization, benefits that for some reason we don't talk about enough. Anyway, so that's my secondary closeout.
Avoiding planetary collapse is a product benefit.
Yeah, but for some reason it's still treated as it's like a side effect, where the main effect is like making more digits in a computer still, for whatever reason for people. But anyway, so I think if we continue to bring this narrative forward, it's important that we really aren't competing, or collaborating. And any one of these networks that want to win at the game of creating a regenerative civilization, like, design your networks to be able to reflect the value back out to everyone else who's been supporting this, so we really can create those systems, right? Dang it. Will, sorry, go. Thanks for indulging me, guys.
It's beautiful to listen to all of it. Sorry if you can hear the power washer in the background. They just started doing some cleaning in the coffee yard. So I'll keep the close out really short and sweet. Yeah, like Sid, really grateful to be here, to be part of this and to show up. And I'm left with one question really, which is, in order to fulfill this inspired action, logging in as a creator and uploading our project to this database, whatever you want to call it, the Regen Civics Incubator section. Are we focusing on the universe as the DAO of DAOs for the Starseed DHO to be part of that, or are we just representing the Starseed Village DHO right now?
I'd say one of them goes under step 5, because one of them is a project that supports, which is the Universe project, which you guys have been doing templates, how to set up legal entities, an ecosystem that they can join, etc. So explain that vision under the projects, which is under step 5. Sorry, under the organizations that are here to support projects under step 5, and then actually do the Star Seeds as a project under step 6. And that's true for everyone here. Like, your organizations that are here to support projects, put them under step 5, because that's where projects will go to find all the organizations that are here to support them. And then you go to step 6 as an individual, looking for all the different projects you might want to join, or learning from other projects, etc. So then under, step 6, put all the projects. Does that make sense? And the invitation for you to be, for the link to that page is here in the chat, and then I'll do an invitation in the chat too. So just everyone click on that invite before you leave, and then you can update this. Back to you, Will, if you have anything else. Nope. or you just can't figure out how
There
to.
we go. There we go.
There you go.
Back. Sorry, I clicked the link and it took me out of the phone and I couldn't get back into Zoom. But yeah, I'm closed out. I mean, your family and we know each other, and it's just a continued conversation of everything we love and know and want to bring to this planet. So thanks for showing up, and I look forward to seeing you all again. I'll over to Stephen.
Nothing more to add, just lots of gratitude for everyone working on this amazing launch this summer with the solstice or the equinox launch. It's extremely exciting, and I'm glad to be a part of it. Thank you all.
Thank you. And just to clarify on the steps, the equinox, we're planning to do the crowdfunding launches. So that's when we start saying, yep, this is the project, we're raising assets for it, with the summer one being when we launch actually people coming to a project to start building it. And then we use between March and summer to actually prepare for people to come to these projects and get on the ground and get working. That's, summer in the Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere is the opposite. And actually how I see Regen Civics, growing and fractaling once we get to that point is we would have a Southern and Northern Hemisphere one. And then people can, choose which ones they want to, collaborate with each time of the year. But generally speaking, winter is when we, are designing the systems, we're doing inner work. Spring is when we're building new energy and getting ready to have people come to projects and launch them, where the summer months is the months where we're actually in festival at the projects, building them, meeting each other, building community, setting up the gardens, etc. Fall, everyone kind of takes off to relax and ground and just be in their villages and projects and whatever they're doing. And then winter, again, we prepare for the next season. Spring, we launch it. We just kind of follow that pattern and continuing to launch new projects. Does that make sense? Do we like that? And again, this is something we can continue to iterate on, is what does that rhythm look like for a yearly pattern? And this is kind of one of the other meta questions we're asking. You're like, what does a pattern look like for a regenerative culture? What would, really help humans thrive? Capitalism said humans thrive under 9 to 5 all year round. It doesn't matter what season it is, just basically the same kind of work requirement. That's completely broken. It doesn't give any time for deep reflection, etc. So that's what we're doing here, is what does a new economic pattern look like? Cultures in the past, they had different social systems, different economic systems, different leaders. Their entire social systems changed between summer months when they're out hunter gathering and winter months when they're back at a city and eating, all the food that they had stored and gathered during the fall months. And they had radically different structures. So this is, cultures we can look at to gain influence or inspiration from on how we redesign what our patterns look like to make sure that we can sustainably continue to do this. And this is a really important question, because if all year round we're trying to prepare for fundraising, we're going to have no time for on the ground actual project launches. And if groups are doing that at different times, then our energies and our focus is going to be all over the place and scattered, kind of like it's been for the entire regenerative movement up until now. It's all been kind of erratic and scattered. There's been kind of like a couple instances where it kind of takes off, but we aren't coordinating at scale, which is kind of the thing that we're really, trying to solve here. Is how do we create those patterns where we can really start scaling our coordination and make things easier for this transition. So anyway, leave us all with all of that, because those are the meta questions we want to be sitting with when we think about what are the best 12 projects that are going to help us learn this. We need to experiment with what these patterns are, and the 12 projects we're choosing are going to give us a diverse window into that world, so that 13th organization that's there is the one worth considering designing. It's the new pattern that's emerging from those 12 trying to figure this out. And that's the one that we evolve with every season, and why we're running different cohorts is we are going on a learning journey to say what's a different way of setting up economic systems for all the purposes we're setting up to do. Okay, so I feel like what I've really done on this call is really just tried to hone in on the vision of what we're here for, so that we don't have to keep doing this again. I think this was probably the best call of it. And then we can just share this video with anyone if they're new. And then we don't have to repeat this exercise anymore, so we could be more effective at getting things done and moving forward. Seeing a lot of head nodding, so it's great. So I'll upload this one and share it with y'all, and we can go from there. Does anyone have anything else they want to add? Or yep, Sydney, go.
Yeah, so like I shared, there's a couple projects or properties that have surfaced that really have nothing there except for resources to put towards like materials or even paying people to set or lay the foundation to do some of the preliminary work so that it can house people. And I think from an educational standpoint, that is really important if we were to like start something from scratch, like with just land. So I know you said you wanted properties that had a bit of a foundation. And I'm just wondering if maybe there could be one that is really like from the ground up.
Yeah, it might. Yeah, exactly. So again, I'm not deciding the criteria. We all should be doing that next call. And then we'll work every project through that criteria and pick the 12 that fit. So we're going to try to be empirical about it. However, this is the 12 that we're putting our energy and time and effort into. We can only handle so much, which is why we need 12. However, we're open sourcing it all, and all these tools are free and available for people to use.
Yay.
So any project that's like, yeah, well, I want to do this too when we're ready, awesome. We'll just follow along the journey, and likely one of those 12 projects represent what you're doing anyway, which is our goal. And then you just follow on their learning journey, attend their calls. I'm sure they're doing it open too. I'm sure you can actually literally attend their sessions and ask questions and do it with them. So we want this to be an open journey where thousands of projects. I mean, the idea is that we're running a cohort of 12 diverse projects, that effort of going through those 12 projects and what we're learning is helpful for thousands of projects or millions of projects. So that's kind of the idea of the 12, is we're not trying to say these are the only 12 projects that can participate. This is diverse 12 projects we're exploring with and learning together with. And each season, we're probably going to grab a new diversity of 12. And maybe, maybe every season of us doing this, it has a new flavor to it. Maybe we do one flavor that is just villages and, living together. Another flavor that's local food economies and how to set those up. Another flavor of like taking over apartment buildings and what does that look like, and taking over resorts, etc. So we can kind of have a different flavor each season too, depending on what people are interested in. So this is like the long form vision of what we could be doing here, but anyway, that's kind of how I'm seeing it. So.
That sounds amazing. I'm all in.
Anything else?
Nope.
Awesome, beautiful humans. I will see you in the metaverse. I will make a quick thing in the Seeds Discord and we can just take it from there.
Thank you so
Good job.
much. I'm about to meet with Luke, by the way, William.
Bye, y'all.